On the 4th of July, when I was 15, my uncle's family was hosting a party at their house, something we did every year as our annual family get-together. For some context, they live on a quiet farmhouse in Kansas, surrounded by cornfields, the perfect place to have our own big fireworks show. My family and our extended family from one side all arrived, along with all my cousins early that afternoon. I spent most of the day in my cousin's room with some of my other relatives, playing my uncle's Nintendo 64, as my parents never let me have one. As the sun was just starting to set, we all gathered around the dining room table, eating a spread of barbecue foods, grilled burgers, hot dogs, corn on the cob, and all the classic 4th of July stuff. My youngest cousin, Tommy, was the first to finish his meal and ran off into another room. My mom instructed me to go bring him back to the table. I walked into the living room expecting to see him on the couch, but he wasn't there. I noticed the backyard motion detecting lights had turned on, signaling movement. I stepped onto the back patio and looked around the yard, calling his name. It was dark out there, and the lights didn't reach that far into the darkness, so if he was out there, I couldn't see him. I continued yelling his name, but got no response, so I went around to the side of the house to see if he was there. Sure enough, I found him standing against the edge of the cornfield looking in. I pulled him back and asked what he was doing. He replied, "I was just talking to that man." Confused, I pressed him further, asking him, "What man?" He said there was a tall man standing in the cornfield. I glanced over into the field, but didn't see anything. "Come on, let's go back inside," I told him, deep down feeling a sense of unease. Returning to the dining room table, I told my dad about the incident. However, he dismissed it, focusing on his conversation with the adults. After dinner, we got out ice cream and various desserts as we awaited my uncle's annual fireworks show. After which, I had all but completely forgotten about this supposed man in the cornfield. As it got to about 10 p.m., most people began to leave as they had long drives back home ahead of them. My family would be staying the night. Later, my two cousins and I were staying up playing Nintendo 64 in my cousin Jackson's room. Tommy had to go to sleep, so it was me, Jackson, and my other cousin Jared. We had to keep the volume low as people were sleeping in just the other room. This allowed us to hear something from the backyard. We all exchanged anxious glances with each other. Jackson approached the window, but suddenly ducked down. We asked him what he was doing. He said there was some guy on the swing set in the backyard. I didn't want to believe him, but I also knew Jackson wasn't the kind of guy to joke about something like this. I army crawled to the window and quickly peered out of it to look for myself. Sure enough, there was a dark figure sitting on one of the swings, swinging back and forth, which is where the noise was coming from. I tried to duck down before he noticed, but he had already turned his head up towards me. Laying on the floor, we whispered to each other, desperately trying to find any logical explanation. But the figure was too tall to be any of our parents. After a few seconds, we realized the squeaking from the swing had stopped. We were too afraid to look out of the window, so we just laid on the floor for another 5 minutes or so. We then agreed that someone should check if he was still there. I slowly sat up to take another look. The man was now standing in the grass, staring up at me with this wide, open-mouthed smile. I didn't know what to do, so I opened the window and started yelling threats at him, to which he gave no reaction, instead just kept smiling. We all ran down the hall to wake up our parents. Amidst the commotion, Tommy had woken up and walked over to the window. He started telling us that it was the same man from earlier in the cornfield. I took another look out the window. The man then turned around and sprinted back into the tall corn stalks. By the time our parents had gotten outside, the man was gone. They ran around the backyard for a bit, yelling out threats into the darkness, but despite even searching part of the cornfield, they never found anything. It took around an hour for everyone to calm down, at which point our parents told us all to go back to bed. We never saw that guy again. Today I'm much older, and the whole situation still remains extremely creepy to me. It's still a common topic among our annual family gatherings to this day.